Star Wars came out in '77. I was 4 years old, and that was my first experience. My dad took me to the theater at 4 years old to see Star Wars in theaters. So Star Wars has been my life since the beginning. I've been a fan ever since. Have seen every movie in the theaters, and not never gonna let go of Star Wars. Never gonna let it go.
All right.
So that's my first experience.
Cool.
I wasn't into it when it came, like when I started watching it. You know, when I really started to like, I only went to see one in the theater. Darth Vader's story was what got me into like wanting to watch it. Like the Anakin thing, the whole Anakin line. Like I wanted to see how he became Darth Vader. So that the last one where he was like turned his body, I went to the movie to see that one. And then from there, I started watching the newer, the second set of trilogy, right? The last, the last three.
Right.
And I still don't understand a lot of it, but like the clones and all that. I used to Google stuff just to understand it.
Right.
But then my little guy, Legend, he makes me laugh with some of the knowledge he knows. And funny story, the other day, he put on Solo. And he's like, oh, look, this movie's good. And, he likes the action. And even knows a lot of the Chewbacca's. Or when we go to Disney World, he's funny, the stuff he tells me, the stories and stuff. It's getting along with him with these things. And now those Star Wars Lego sets here. So it's pretty cool.
Okay. Cool. I think it was like 1980, 84, 86, something like that. I think it was 86. And I went to the movie theater with my family. I was probably like 5-6 years old. And my sisters and my brother wanted to watch it, so we all had to go watch it together. And so that was like my first experience. And they were showing, for whatever reason, they were showing the original like movie, and where everybody knew that James Earl Jones was Darth Vader, right? Like he was the voice of Darth Vader, and the voice was so bombing and commanding. And I think every time Darth Vader had spoken, it kind of like had me sit still in my chair because he got my attention. So I've been a Star Wars fan ever since. It just like I never got into Lego until later, and then the two niche mesh together, so that that worked for me real well, especially when I find out that there's Star Wars and Lego.
Oh yeah. And I like what Tone said. It does bring together family.
Yes.
Another great memory I have is that when the second trilogy came out, I actually took my son out of school and we went to the movies to see it. A lot of people say, "Oh, you're not a great parent," but I'm like, these memories are things he's always going to remember.
Right.
So Star Wars is something that I've definitely brought forth with family as well, because it's important to bring forth memories, but Star Wars can bring family together.
Names.
There's so much in Star Wars, man. Like everyone's bound to get something wrong. I mean, even Filoni gets it wrong sometimes. So let's just.
Oh, that's bad. How you get your own stuff wrong? That's like.
So the actor that plays Darth Maul. Do you remember his name? So he caught Filoni on a mess up. On something I forgot what it was, but he caught him. It's about like how Padme, she looks forward to meeting Anakin's wife, when technically they already met in episode 1. So Filoni gets it wrong too. So it's all good.
Yeah, that's what happens when you tell so many stories. You forget which one is the truth. Ever happened to you, man? Like you had a brick con, and you name a Star Wars character and you got it wrong, and the guy sitting there looking at his mock, looking at you, and realized that you've been messed up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say that that's not happened to me, but I have messed up a lot of Star Wars lore. So it's it changes. You know what I mean? You have your legends, you have your, you know, what's not canon, you have, you know, what's is canon, you have your movies, your shows. It's a lot. It's a lot of lore to go by.
Kids,
Oh
but
yeah, man.
you know, Star Wars has been one thing that has helped me to connect with my son. So I definitely understand why it's definitely an important thing, and something great that we have that connects us all together.
Oh yeah, yeah. You said the word connection, and so that brings me to my next point. When you watch these you know this saga, right? The Star
Mhm.
Wars saga, because there's so many of them now. I can't just say a trilogy or you know the certain you know era or whatever. You watch this saga. What do you ever catch yourself identifying with any of the characters?
Wow, that's a that's a very thought provoking question. Um, I can't think of anyone right now, but I can see how it can draw people in because you know there are people like Luke who you know grew up and didn't know who his father was, and then
Right.
comes to find out his father was great, but then found out that his father also had issues.
Mhm.
Um, you know, he finds out, you know, like we see a whole lot of these stories that go on TV nowadays about um I didn't know I had a sibling, and then he finds out that he has a long lost sister. You know,
Right.
it's that type of stuff that I think that really resonates because we can see the stuff that they put in there is stuff that happens in real life.
Right.
um you don't always know that how great people are or the issues that people have or the fact that you're connected with people that you didn't know you were connected to. So and I think that you know not so much whether I connected with characters, but it actually created bonds between me and other people that I never thought that I would have.
Okay.
um you know, having conversation about Star Wars, you could be sitting anywhere and start bringing up Star Wars, and it's an instant conversation. You know,
Hmm.
somebody in the room knows what you're talking about, or at least a little bit. So
Right.
it definitely draws you in and brings you all together with that. So I think that's definitely an awesome piece about Star Wars.
Okay. How about you, Tone? Did you connect it? You find
I
yourself
don't
connecting
like
to a story
since
or
I'm
some
not
characters?
like I'm not like in depth in the movie that I know each person's, you know, like oh this person, you know, like you guys, you know where this one came from and who was this band, you know, like y'all know
Mhm.
more. You're so I can't say that I can relate, but I understand what Rev said. It made a lot of sense hearing it
Yeah.
about the
Yeah.
father issues and that like wow that's a fact. There's how many people hang out with people and go, "Oh man, you my brother." Like I give you, I hung out with my cousin, and we, you know, he brought a dude in the circle, and I'm like, "Wow, this dude looks familiar." Later on,
Uh-huh.
I found out that's his brother, so that's my cousin. I'm like, "Oh wow!" So you know, like I have him hanging out with my cousin, didn't even know he was my cousin.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So like you see that, like oh, I'm like, wow, that made a lot of sense. But like to see that I probably would say there's a lot that you'd be like, wow, I wish I was a bounty hunter, or I wish I was, you know, like things that you would wish. I before I knew what Darth Vader looked on the inside or whatever, I was like, well, I wish Darth Vader's badass. I want to be like him, you know, like
Right.
the red saber, and you know, that was cool to me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you hit
Like
the nail
I
on the
would, I
head.
would,
Like
you
I'd be
know,
remiss or you know not doing the public a service by trying to dance around it. But like you know the world is imperfect with colorful people, right? So you got all different shades of different people, and so you can kind of I watched James Earl Jones movies before, and so I knew who the character was, you know, just by the tone of his voice, and in my eyes, I'm like, yo, the bad dude is a black dude. Like I know that dude, like you know that voice, like I know that voice. I'm like, man, he has one of the most prolific voices and the
Hmm.
prolific characters in this
so
saga. Like, and I really didn't understand it back then because I'm just a kid in the '80s, right? And so it didn't really hit me. But I'm like, man, like, to me, that's big time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, they never really show James Earl Jones' face, and when it got down to it, it was somebody else's face. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
James Earl Jones. And so as a young kid, that was like confusion. I didn't understand that. Like, I didn't understand, like, why? I mean, that's not that guy's voice. Why? I mean, I know who the guy is that voiced that, but why isn't he in the suit? And
Exactly.
maybe James Earl Jones was just a little bit old around that time. I mean, he was getting to be old, man, so he probably wouldn't have been able to move around just a little bit. You talking about 80-ish, maybe.
It one
Maybe,
of those people that when you was young, he was old when he was young. Like
right.
Like what's the other one with the good voice? Come on, what?
Morgan Freeman.
He was old
Yeah.
forever to me. Like you see him,
Right.
he been old, but like since you seen him the first time, he looked old.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but I completely understand what you're saying. It's like by the time they get to the point where they actually show the face and they pull the mask off, you're sitting there on anticipation, sitting there waiting, and then they pull the mask on. You're like, who's this white guy?
Yeah. Yeah, let me tell you, it was stunning, man. It to me, it was like a dagger in the heart, and I was like, oh, like, why? Like, I didn't understand that as a kid. I'm sitting like, that's not that guy. Like, that's not him.
And you didn't understand the, but he was just so dark and cool.
Yeah.
And when he came through, he commanded that authority, like, when he was choking the one guy without holding him, and when he came through people, I think they did a great job in the Han Solo. No, in the what TV show was that he was
the Solo movie?
No, not the Solo, the other one, Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan,
okay.
Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan was scared of him, man. That was and I noticed that Obi-Wan was ducking him. Oh yeah, man, and it's getting involved, like especially like with news story like Ahsoka, right?
Mm-hmm.
Man, like they announced that they're doing Ahsoka like a year or so ago, and they announced that Rosario Dawson is going to play Ahsoka. Man, how did that make you feel?
At first, I was a little confused to like why. I knew they were using, original voice actors as the players. Whoops. I know they were using real voice actors as the players for these shows, but I didn't really accept it until I think episode 6 of Ahsoka. Okay. When I was really diving into like why, when they were was it 6 or 5? The one where she's doing the flashbacks in the time.
It was like
when it was going, so when it was going back to younger her in the Clone Wars, and then going back to her like now, there's a level of maturity there that Rosario Dawson can convey, because she's very reserved. Now, I think a lot of people are not really a fan of like reserved, calm, emotionless Ahsoka. Okay. But we also got to remember that a lot has happened since Order 66, right? Since the 7th season of Clone Wars. So like, whatever happened from then through Mandalorian to Ahsoka, she's a lot more reserved. She lost her Padawan. Well, then obviously she gets her back. But she's not loud, and her maturity is something that needs to be conveyed. And I think Rosario Dawson can do that, obviously, because she has a lower voice. So she's definitely grown. If you were to have the actress from Clone Wars play the same role, I don't think we'd be able to feel that type of emotion, only because naturally she has a higher pitched voice. That's why she plays Ahsoka, in a younger Ahsoka, in all the television shows. So to be dark, to be brooding, to be somewhat reserved and powerful, I think a more deeper voice that Rosario actually has, I think that works so much well. So like I said, it didn't really hit me until I saw like that episode. Then I'm like, okay, I can accept this. Yeah. But I mean, I'm a fan of her as an actress to begin with. So, I didn't really see Ahsoka as someone that, like, her character doesn't color anyways, because she's orange and dark blue.
Right.
So I for a dark skinned woman to play her, for me, it would have been the same if it was a white-skinned woman playing her, but I'm all for it because I'm a fan of the actress first. But hey, sister's got to play. I'm down with it.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah, man, it was a big win for me, because it was like, oh man, like, because like you said, they could have cast that role to anybody of any type of hue or shade, right? Because, like you said, you know, Ahsoka's orange. You know, it's a lot of makeup and prosthetics there, right?
Yep.
And so, but yeah, I could see when they announced that, I could see it because I pulled myself back to Sin City and how calm and cool she was in Sin City, right? So I'm like, yeah, I could dig that. Or even when she played the very young love interest of Jesus Shuttlesworth and he got game, right?
Yeah.
So so she just I just never seen her high strung. Like, you know, I think all her roles were kind of cool, calm, collected, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's what Filoni wanted. Again, it's my opinion. Like, I think that's what he wanted out of Ahsoka now. Because look, she's died a couple times. She's gone against like the baddest of the bunch. And like, if you really think about how much Anakin has trained her, like, there has to be a moment of separation between young Ahsoka and old Ahsoka. And Ahsoka now, if she would have continued her training, would be, I would think, one of the strongest Jedi that currently remain, even not really rivaling like Luke, but like literally can be a contender for like who else is still alive? Like there's like what 15 Jedi, maybe 20. Like, but to her skill level, this one was trained by Anakin Skywalker.
Right.
Like he's the reason why she did not die during Order 66 was because of her training, or because of his training with her. So she's one to be reckoned with, and like and you see it in that episode again, like when you see her in the beginning when she didn't think this was right, you know, she thought war was wrong, this is not the way of the Jedi, and then Anakin said, you know, you either live or die. So and then you just see her in, you know, on Mandalore just destroying fools, and a good reminiscence from, you know, from the show from season 7. But then you just see the darkness of what you see in war, right? You see, like for me as an example, or you as well. Like, you know, you come out as a rookie, you come out as a new boot. You know, you want to, you know, you feel like you're invincible. You know, then you realize, oh, it's not what they showed you in the recruiting videos or on TV. This is real. And then as you grow over time and you survive and you live, you're not the first one to jump out like and just start blazing everything. Like you're calculative, you're quiet. You don't, you know, you're humble. You know, like the value of life. So you move when you need to, and that's the Ahsoka we have now. She moves when she needs to. She does not jump out of out of her ship for no reason whatsoever. Like if she has to, she'll do it, but she doesn't need to. She's
like, you know, there was a black person that was in that era, right? That in that era of that time frame of the movies, which was Billy D. Williams, right? It was, you know, and
you said Billy D at the right time. Look at that, right?
Billy D.
Was that like a
45. My man says, he said Coke 45. It worked every time.
Yo, that'd been funny if we would have had a Coke
and everybody knew who Billy D was, and you know, they knew the name. So when he popped up, people were just like really hyped that Billy D was in there. His part wasn't as prolific as Darth Vader, but the fact that he was in there, and it really showed.
So he did the switch side on them, right? He at the beginning, like he turned them over to the other guys.
Yeah.
Yo, you was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, a lot of people were wondering, you know, what was the deal with that, and what I had to explain to people is understand he was a smuggler. Yeah, he wasn't loyal to nobody.
Nah.
So it's the thing about it is you got to understand he's loyal to the money.
Yeah, and that's what, like, in that era, like, I don't want to say era, but that you couldn't trust nobody. You couldn't trust nobody, and then with you know, Darth Vader's whole, you know, they about to take over, so you know what side you trying to pick. You got to be on that side because you want to be on their good grace.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, would you want to get choked out by Vader?
And
the thing about it is,
he's gonna bring that bang.
his whole name just like, it's like everything about him, just people that heard the name were afraid just from hearing the name. Right. So
hearing him,
you know, Vader had a lot going on with him.
That breathing machine, that was You know, like, and then when he popped, you know, the music changed and it get darker.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. So yeah, you're right. You know, and you got like Billy D. Williams with Lando. You know, and yeah, he was, to me. I don't know. I think Lando probably could have had a bigger role. Like they could have did some stuff with him and Han Solo. You know, I get it. You probably only got 2 hours to a movie or something, right? But yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like he could have. I mean, instead of just being a cameo, because that's basically what it boiled down to. He was in, he was out. He was in,
Yeah.
and he was out. You know,
And I think it was more of a cameo like that because I truth be told, I don't really think. I think that he was just there more to draw in people of color.
yeah,
And we have to speak on that too. You know, a lot of times with these movies, they do that just to draw us in because otherwise there would be no reason for us a lot of times if we're not really sci-fi people that we would want to go see the movie.
True.
And here's the thing: is it tough? Is it tough being black and being a sci-fi person? Is it tough?
I think it is because sci-fi in and of itself is to people think it's weird. They're just like they don't understand it. You know, people trying to explain it to friends, trying to explain it to family, they're just like, you're just a big weirdo.
Yeah.
You know, I've never been able to explain sci-fi to my dad.
Okay.
My dad is the one who took me to see my first sci-fi movie, but it's like if I try to sit and try to talk with him about Star Wars, his eyes would glaze over and he would be completely lost and be like, okay, all right, we don't need to talk no more about that. Because he wouldn't get it. My thing is, I guess with me, I'm very deep with it.
Okay.
You'll notice even with like back here, you see, Star Wars is life.
Right.
So it's like when people come and they want to know about Star Wars, they're like, oh, ask Rev. Rev knows history. Rev knows this. Rev knows that.
The other day last week I was asking you about
yeah.
I was watching the show. I'm like, matter of fact, this and this and how even one time there's another dude in the Lego community. We started chit chatting. He's another Star Wars guy, and I'm like, explain the clones to me because I didn't understand what a clone was.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't know. In some of the movies, they look like they're good. Sometimes they look bad. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what's this. Like, I didn't understand some of that stuff.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, it can be deep, and that's what I think that's one of the biggest things for people is that they don't understand how deep Star Wars really can be. Because there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it, and those of us that are really, really engrossed in it, it's like we can give you background, history, all this type stuff. Telling about because we can even tell the stuff that comes from what they call legends. That a lot of people don't know about, which is the old Star Wars stories that were after the original trilogy came out, that they started writing books about and things to that effect, but then they then non-canonize those things and call them legends.
Yeah.
So we get deep into that and start talking about that lore. So it's a lot to it, and some people say we're a little extra, but it's all good.
Some like you. I'm telling you, I was gonna say, you guys know, like the ones that know, they know the history of this person, where this one was born, and this and that. I'm like, wow, they didn't even show that in the movie. You know what I mean? Like, how'd you get all that?
Yeah, so he was created for the prequels.
Yeah, I felt good about it. Yeah, I felt good about Mace Windu because he was powerful. He was a powerful character on the scene. It wasn't like he was just a cameo, and it was somebody we knew. So maybe that was a tactic to draw us in because around this time Samuel L. Jackson was hot. Like he was almost in every movie.
Yeah, because Samuel Jackson is like in all the movies.
Word.
But one thing I also liked about the character was that the development of him when they did the Clone Wars series was so deep. I always remember this one battle. They were trying to come up on these droids, and there was this electronic bridge that they were trying to get across. And they were trying to get across it, and they cut off the power to the bridge. He was able to find a way across and handled them droids.
Right.
He took down a tank with the Force. It's just amazing. And that I was just like, it's just like in the back of my mind, when they cut off the bridge, I could hear him saying MF. You know, I could with Samuel, you know, it's just that's what I was feeling.
He makes
was
that
saying
face,
when it happened. Even though it was Mace, I just felt like mother.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's like knowing how his characters always are. It's just like it's so funny when you see him in different roles. You're just like, okay, there's certain things I'm expecting to have him come out his mouth. And even though it was a kid show, I was just like in my mind, I was like, he was saying mother.
Right. Yeah.
And it was funny.
Oh yeah, man. You know, and that was one like character that I could be proud of and be like, yeah, you know, he's definitely represented the Star Wars family great. So there's one that is not so good, right? The actor himself, I'm sure he's a great actor, but this character that he played not so well. And I'm talking about Ahmed Best, Jar Jar
Ahmed
Binks.
Best,
Yeah,
Jar Jar Binks.
Ahmed Best, Jar Jar Binks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like he gets a bad rap because the epitome of Jar Jar Binks and basically like his language, right? So to me, the language of Jar Jar Binks is like slavish, right? It comes off as slave. It's basically how the ancestors used to speak because they didn't have education. And so, you know, so to me, I think he got a bad rap on that role because there was some backlash to it. You remember?
There was definitely backlash, and I think the backlash and what's funny is the backlash wasn't so much from Black folk. A lot of the backlash was just from those, you know, deeply rooted, swear that Star Wars is supposed to only be one thing,
right?
People,
yeah.
And you know, it was so bad that he honestly didn't want to deal with anything anymore, and I just say it like that. But over time, got past that. But the great thing was how they brought him back. In the what was it? Which season was that? I think it was Mandalorian season 3. When they brought him back as a Jedi Master, not Jar Jar, but Ahmed Best as a Jedi Master.
As a Jedi Master, yeah.
And I liked the fact that they brought him back. And what's so funny is that some of the same folk that was talking all that garbage were like, "Oh, we're so glad you're back. We love you." And I'm just like, y'all the same ones that was driving that man crazy.
Yeah.
Why y'all playing?
Right.
And see that's the thing. Those are some of the things I don't like about the fandom. You know, because like for instance, when the prequels came out, there were people talking big stuff about the prequels, calling it trash, saying it wasn't great.
Okay.
But then when it came back, and then over time, people started warming up to the prequels because they did some rewatching. They started realizing what it was really for. And then the fact that Clone Wars actually really gave a lot of depth to the prequel trilogy.
They did, yeah.
So because of that, now they're like, oh, the prequels are so great. Oh, we love it. But then then the new trilogy came out and they started doing the same thing to that trilogy.
Right.
People have been bashing it and saying it's not great. And I'm like, give it 10 years and we're going to be in the same position.
Right. Yeah, because
they're going to be talking about how great it is.
Uh-huh.
That's
and then
some of the things I don't like about the fandom is how they are so overly critical about things. And one thing I explained to people, I said, why do you get angry about a character that a fictional character to the point that you want to talk negatively about people and to people?
Okay.
I'm like, I can't get angry about fiction.
Right, because it's a fictional story. Yeah.
And I'm like, every writer has their way that they like to write. They like to write characters a certain way, and that's what they do. And if they're the one that Disney has tapped to do this story, then that's what the story is. If you don't like it, there's so much other media that you can watch. But then, I get into those conversations, and then I start being told that I'm not a fan. And I'm like, I've been a fan since probably before you were even thought about.
Right.
And the thing is, that's why I sit there and I laugh at a lot of people who tell me I'm not a fan. I'm like, oh, okay. If that's what you say, okay, I'm there with you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. Well said, man. Well said. Yeah. And that's her in a nutshell, man. That's it. Like, it's more like you said, a calculated move type of Ahsoka versus, that old school Anakin that just like strike everything down. Like Star Wars lay off for a bit, right? They came out with the new episodes or the prequels, and then they laid off for a bit. And then they come back with Force Awakens, and they hit. Remember, they hit us with that trailer, right? You had the stormtrooper running in the sands or whatever. Bends over, takes off his helmet, and the dude is browner than you and me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a trip. I mean, like to be honest, like I always felt like Star Wars had that token black dude. Right? We had Lando.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's one, you know what I mean? If you want, I guess you can, Samuel Jackson can be that, I guess, for the first three when I don't know, but like, and then this was it. But he was the one that opened it as opposed to like,
being
he just being in the background, you know? So I mean, like I smiled at first. Like I remember this emotion so well. I smiled at first because I'm like, is this what I think it is?
Right.
And then boom, he takes it off. I'm like, yo, this is dope. I didn't have like a flood of emotion or anything. I'm just like, okay, what's going on here? This is what's up. And then I mean that was it. I mean, I think they did it very subtly. I didn't feel forced or anything like that. So I was, there's a difference between forcing it and not. And I think his character, it didn't feel token. Yeah. It just felt like he was a part of the story.
Yeah.
From the beginning, like I however you want to, see where you went at the end of it, but from the beginning, that's how I felt.
Yeah. I felt, man. I felt like, and this is gonna come off wrong, man. I'm sorry, but I'm old school. I don't even know how to rephrase it, but it felt like, Barack Obama wins the damn presidency, right? Because
I remember. I voted for the dude, so I do remember.
The story was that all the stormtroopers, right, were Jango Fett, right? Which he's an olive tone type of guy, right? So but to me, I'm like, man, stormtroopers don't look like me, like So when this dude takes his helmet off, I'm like, yo, what is going on? What's really going? And I'm cheering, like, yo, that's what's up. That's what's up, yeah. And then you're left for a whole year or a year and a half to depict that trailer, right? And a lot of people were upset, man. A lot of people were upset about it. But then, of course, they had the background story how they went away from the clones, and then like how they went with just people to fill these these troopers, right?
Yeah, just regular stormtroopers. Yeah.
And so and then that makes sense. And then, you know, of course, you know, watching the movie, I'm excited because I'm like, yo, I want to find out what's this dude all about, what is it about. And like you said, they lead up with him, and he was the lead role. He was the lead role for that movie.
Yeah, he was.
And then they switched it. They switched gears, and even to a point where you saw him with the lightsaber in his hand. And then the next movie they switch gears, and it's all Ray, and he goes properly to supporting Cass, because now it's about the Jedi, right? And then I'm like, oh man, I hope when they in that second movie, I'm like, you know, I hope that, you know, that like the Last Jedi, I'm hoping he's not the next Lando, because to me, Lando did a lot of tap dancing, bro. Like he was like he had more. That dude, let me tell you, that dude had more. He had more screen time in the Colt 45 commercial than Star Wars. So, you know, I love Billy D, man, and they give Billy a lot of praise for being in that. But my man, like, if you count the screen minutes, man, it's I want to tell you, it's probably less than 20.
That's why I said it. That was Token. That's what it was. I mean, I'm not gonna hate on it. I still love the classics. I think the character from Lando was great. I'm happy that they're expanding on them, or at least trying to.
Yeah.
But as far as Finn, though, you know, I feel this is me feeling it, because of the Chinese market, and how they weren't really receptive to the character, that it affected the next two movies with him. Okay. Because, you know, I'm gonna say it, they're not as open to, you know, a lead character being of that color.
Right.
So, like if you look at the posters in Asia, Finn wasn't prominent in the photos. He was much smaller.
Right.
So it does feel like Disney definitely, you know, trying to, because, you know, they trying to only allow, I don't know if it's still a thing, but, you know, for a while, if maybe till now, they only allow like 10 US movies enter China. So, you know, and that's a $1 billion market for movies there. So if you can get your movie to play in China, then boom, you're gonna make some money, and that's what Disney was trying to do. So they see that's kind of jacked up. They cater to that form of racism.
Yeah. But it makes money, dude. It's messed up, but you know, if you, like you said, if you guarantee money, you follow the rules, right? Like you follow the rules. It's messed up, absolutely. But
now, I don't know how that affected his character for the next two movies.
Yeah,
like, you know, maybe that's why he wasn't as prominent, or they didn't really like dive in further into his background. I mean, he touched it, but they didn't really like. He was just there. I think for me, he was just there in 2 and 3. He wasn't really like, you know, invested into as far as like the first one. But I think because of the Asian market has a lot to do with that. And, you know, Disney got to do what they got to do to make the money, and Disney it didn't hurt right now. So I get it.
But you know what? I take it as a win, because it was still good to see him, and it's
of course
it's still good to be a part of the universe, right? Like so we fast forward, you know, I guess a couple years, whatever, and they bring in Samuel L. Jackson as Mace Windu. What are your thoughts?
Loved it. The thing about it is, because one, we knew that we had all these races and all these different alien groups or what have you, and I was like, we gotta have another. We can't, even though it just seems like we just had one black person per generation, but it's like, but his character was just so deep. With the fact
like
that he
Samuel
was
Jackson, but in Star Wars.
Exactly.
You know, like
and the fact that he was a Grand Master of the Jedi Order, he was second in command to Yoda, which everybody knew who Yoda was.
Yeah.
And that he was that high up, that said a lot. You know, a lot of people were just like, "Oh my goodness, he's that high up. He got that much power."
I got a question. Was he mentioned in any of the early movies?
He was not mentioned in any of the early movies. None of the original movies.
Not the originals. Yeah, not the originals.
So he was a new character that was created for the trilogy. For the sorry, for the prequels.
For the new ones, for the prequels. And John Boyega comes on as Finn, right? And I remember the trailer, bro. I remember the trailer. You see this stormtrooper, and he's running in the dune or whatever, and you know, and he pulls off the helmet, right? And he looks like you and me. I'm shocked, like because here's why, Tone. Here's why, because Rev and I already know that the stormtroopers are supposed to be clones, right? They all supposed to be that Mandalorian. They're supposed to be Jango Fett, right? They're clones of Jango Fett. So when my man pulled his stormtrooper helmet off, and this is before they went into the story. Like, all right, they got away from the clones and they did something else to get basically enlisted people, to be stormtroopers, right? But you never take your helmet off, right? That's the Mandalorian saying. You never take your helmet off.
Yeah.
My man pulls that helmet off, and he looks like you and me. Man, you would think somebody won the lottery, like, because I was shocked. I was like, what? Like, what?
It was like, where does brother come from? When did that happen?
Right. and they left you silent for like a whole year, bro. Like a whole year, they let that trailer rock before the movie came out.
So he was human. The other original ones wasn't.
Yeah, the original troopers were clones. But
clones, they were made, right? They were made.
Yeah, they were made. What we found out later on through everything is when we started finding out about the clones and how they got away from having clone troopers and they went towards conscripting, people, just like, you sign up, you want to be part of the military. Right. And that's what ended up happening. So that's what they had turned to. So it was like really, really a different thing. And we were like, okay, we didn't know this had happened until we saw in Clone Wars when they started explaining, actually not even Clone Wars. It was I think it was Rebels is when we started seeing that troopers were other people. And then we started getting into the other stories when they started talking about how they switched over from clones to troopers. Because that's when the Bad Batch came out. We saw that, and they talked about those things there as well, on how they were moving away from clones, and they were moving towards conscripted soldiers, people who made the choice that they wanted to fight for the Empire. Because the big thing about the clones was that Order 66 that went down because they had that chip in their head. Yeah. But then after that, you realize that they were forced into doing that, and later on they started feeling remorse. So they were like, we can't have these clones that are remorseful about what they did to the Jedi because they may rebel against us.
Yeah, man, it was wild to see my man take that stormtrooper helmet off and seeing that it was. I'm like, dude, this is brothers. They doing a whole nother twist. Like I'm like, man, I'm gonna see this. And they got into it, and we'll talk about this because this was this actually, my man really received some backlash. He probably went a little too hard. John, I'm with you. I'm down with the cause too, but I think he went a little too hard. And so the first movie, it was his story, and they were following him. And at one point in the movie, he's holding Luke Skywalker's lifesaver, and right then and there, that embodies that. Okay, he's going to be next up. Like, well, how he there's got Jedi in him, and they're not alluding to it or nothing, right? And so it's like, but then the next movie, it's all about Rey, because John Boyega's Finn led us to Rey, but Rey wasn't the focal point just yet. In that second movie, she becomes the focal point, and that her story takes over at that point.
Yeah, and the thing which is interesting about that is that people say, "Oh, we have a story that's not connected." Yeah, and I tell them, I say, "Yeah, I completely understand that. I keep always going back to people and saying, do you understand why the story was not connected? And people don't want to accept the reason why it wasn't connected. They just want to talk about it not being connected. And I'm like, so we all remember Star Wars. Star Wars had movies that came out every 3 years.
Yeah.
And with that, the same person who did each movie was the same person. What happened was with this one, they did The Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
But before The Force Awakens was even in theaters, even was being able to be screened, they were saying that they needed the next one written and done. The first writer was still working on the first movie. He was still doing cleanup on that, trying to get that done. So they hired another writer,
right,
who wrote the next movie. The other writer didn't know what direction the first movie was going, but he had to write a story. Yeah. So he wrote it as vague as he could to kind of try to make it tie in, but it just wasn't gonna float.
Right.
Because the thing about it is because they shortened the timeline and said, instead of every 3 years, we're gonna do these every 2 years.
Yeah.
So you took a whole year out, which if they'd have left that year in there and did them every 3 years, then the person who did the first one could have did the second one and the third one. So what they did was, because of the backlash, because of what people saw the second one, because they started working on the third, they were like, okay, we're seeing test screenings, people aren't liking the second one. They hired back the person who did the first one to do the third one.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So he tied everything that he was trying to do in the first one to the third one, and kind of tried to pull stuff from the second one. But when you're trying to do that, it doesn't work too well. But I really wish that Finn's story would have continued with him in that vein, because I think it would have been not just good for him, but good for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's nowhere that we see us as Jedi. The good thing was that, like I said, in Mandalorian season 3, we saw Ahmed Best come back as a Jedi, a master. We did see Mace, but that was the only person we saw of the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that we had Ahmed Best that came back, but I really think Finn's story would have been great to show the transition from, being under the Empire and being trained by the Empire to then becoming a part of the Resistance and a talented Force user.
Which makes sense, because they did say, hey, look, you don't. Basically, they were just coming out like, look, there's all kinds of people that have the Force inside them, like, what I mean? You don't have to be, of a family to be, that Jedi, and that's how they were running it. But then they tied it together and just basically said that Rey was the granddaughter of the Emperor. I hope I'm not spoiling it for you, Tom. But they said, Rey was
I already know most. Yeah, I know the things.
And honestly, I think that was a poor choice.
Yeah.
I think, the thing about it is when Kylo told her that she was nothing.
Yeah.
I think they should have went with that. I think they should have.
You watched Obi-Wan, right?
Yes, I vaguely remember it. It was
Obi-Wan ran from Vader. He ran from Vader, bro. He was running into boxes trying to get away from that dude.
I mean, what's his goal, right? Protect Luke.
He was gonna wipe Obi-Wan off the map that night, man.
He was. But then that would have ruined part 4. So we knew that wasn't gonna happen.
Oh man. So then you got the third sister in Star Wars, Reva, right? She started off as, I guess her story is that she started off as a young Padawan, and she was at the Jedi Temple studying, and And of course, you know who pops up at the joint, wipes everybody out, thinking he done wiped her out, and apparently she survives, right? And then she's, you know, decides to take a life of insurgency, right? So she's working for the dark side. She's getting close. She's like Vader's like probably was it third hand man right there, right? So you working close with Vader. You doing his bit, right? And all of a sudden you see like the story just changed. She went from trying to track Obi-Wan down to actually going to help him, because now this puts her in a position to get some get back, right? And you see that, and then the Star Wars fans, bro, like I apologize right now, like we're probably going to get some people like cussing us out about how we bring this up. Sure. But you talk about these things, you air these things out to move forward to a better tomorrow, right? Because if we don't, then it's the next actor like that played the actress that played Reva will experience the same thing again. Apparently she had a lot of backlash from the fandom, and it was bad, man. It's like, wait a minute, like, I'm an actor trying to earn my money by selling you a fictional story, being a part of this fictional story. It's fiction, and some folks can't accept that, and then they lash out and become keyboard heroes, right?
Of course.
And it's just the ultimate disrespect of a black person. But not only that, is of a woman, man. So like, you imagine some dude that's crazy about Star Wars and he doesn't like what he sees, and he goes in on this woman, and it's like, man, like, where's the compassion at? What happened to Star Wars for everybody? Star Wars is supposed to be for everybody. It's not only American pop culture, but it's a universal pop culture. Like, it's known around the world, man. Like, and if we had differences, we put on our favorite Star Wars movie, and all of a sudden all those differences and everything go out the window, and so I say that to, like I said, I'm glad we talked about bridging the gap, because I see this, and this can easily translate over to our brick world easily. And to prevent that, you talk about these things so that we spread the word that, like, it's I think it's about time, right? And here's what it is that this year, like you even said too, this year a lot of women have came out to brick, man, a lot. Yep. And they ain't there to be spectators, bro. They taking over the scene, and that's good. That's good for the business, man.
Yes.
And I love what I'm saying, man. And in Virginia, I said in my keynote speech, I said, look, I said the worst convention I ever went to, I said, was this one. I said, yeah, it was Virginia Brick Fair. It was my first convention. And I set up, I had 3 things to set up, and I set them up on the table. I said, what made it worse was not sitting in the back by the moon bounce, which was extremely loud. I said, it was that, because I walked through this whole vicinity and no one said a word to me. No one said, hey, welcome to Brick Fair. No one said anything. They shouldn't. And so I said that to them to say, hey, look, when you have these cons, right, make sure that you say hello or talk to 2 people that you don't even know, because it might be their first convention, and you want them to have a positive experience like you're having right now.
No, I've promoted the same sentiment a lot, as far as when people ask me the question of, if I were to choose a convention, which one should I go to? Mm-hmm. And I tell people all the time, like, try to go to one with your friends, because that's the easiest way to kind of get into the moment. I mean, like, you can go to Chicago, like or Virginia, the 2 biggest conventions, in the United States, and you don't know anyone.
Right.
You might not have a good time unless you put yourself out there. But it does help when people are welcoming and, they want to talk to you, because, it kind of breaks down that defense mechanism, or it kind of pulls you out of your shell. But like, but you could have you can have a better time at a small convention that nobody's ever heard of, but your 3 homies are there.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I mean that's really what it comes down to. But I look, as far as I mean, I've experienced that. Like, I've been to, my first convention was Bricks LA, back in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anybody, nobody. I didn't have a single friend in the Lego community, and I was a normie. I just went in, looked at everything, left. But then I was watching all these, videos of, all these people going to conventions, and they're all having a good time. I didn't have that good time. No one said hi to me. But then again, it is LA, so we're not that friendly to people. So it could be the culture too.
Right.
And for, if we also got to remember that, like, you and I come from very diverse cities. Mm-hmm. Right. We're used to seeing different cultures mixed into a melting pot. We know how to react to, certain mannerisms. Sometimes we still fail at it. We still acknowledge that we fail at it, but we accept the fact there are different ways of doing things based on the different types of people that are around. But the good chunk of the United States isn't like that. Yeah. So, we got to give it to them for trying. Sometimes when they try, they fail miserably, but at least they're trying. Other times they just don't know what to say, so they don't try because they don't want to offend us. So that's another thing. And then the other ones are just, they don't care because it's like, I don't know, I have nothing to say to you, I'm gonna move on. So, I think as time progresses, just like, how our cities have progressed within generations of turmoil, it takes time for a predominantly white male fandom to open up. Yeah. So I see it now, like Chicago's beautiful. That's a perfect, like, melting pot of everyone. You have your different fandoms from, your different themes. You have your different platforms from YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, all those. And then you have your different, Lego groups. And then you have, your different genders that are all there. And then, it just, and everyone's mixing around. The only cliques would be your friend cliques. There's no barrier of entry based on what you look or sound like.
Yeah.
So,
they're very diverse. Even the friends cliques are very diverse. Yeah.
Very. But we could say, we can go to a totally I can't really talk, but if we go to like some random convention, like I'm just gonna choose a state like up north in Montana, or Wyoming. So I'm gonna, or Utah, right? And then the majority of culture there is,
let me think. Let me slow.
So you see where I'm going. Then I hit it. Right. Hey, Brick Slopes had, Filipino food. There was a Filipino restaurant down the street, and we were very surprised. And I was very surprised and be like, hey, what are the Filipinos doing here? What are y'all doing here?
Oh, we did the Korean barbecue, man. Oh, whew.
It's just like, okay, so the fact that me being in a different country where my expectation for what I would see as far as culture and people was, I was expecting to see that. And then I see Koreans there. Like I wouldn't expect that. So like, it's just that shock, that hit of realization that, different cultures can mend everywhere. Different people can mend anywhere. It's not just these main pockets of cities in like where we find ourselves in Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, Virginia, there you can find people of, you can find Mexicans in North Dakota. Yeah. And like, it really just takes that first person to really break down that barrier in that area to kind of alleviate or destroy any, stigmas or, racial epithets that might be in the air. It really comes down to basic human, decency, right? You just meet the person, you just talk to the person, and then all judgment or biases that you probably previously had in the past may, if mostly, go away.
Yeah. The Force Awakens with Lord, please help me with her name. Lupita
Nyong'o.
Yeah, she was Maz, right? Maz.
Yes.
And that's a character, and like I said, just like with Darth Vader, you could tell people's voices. Like, yeah, you got a distinct voice about you. That
Mm-hmm.
I know who this is, and so like her voice, her speaking gave me chills watching that movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here's another person, like she was a force wielder as well. Even
Exactly.
though she all CGI, right? The character itself is CGI. She was a force wielder as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like you said, a lot of the characters that were of color
Uh-huh.
were people who, if you were to just look at the character,
Mm-hmm.
you don't know who it is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The only ones you had Finn, Mace, and Billy D.
Yeah.
As Lando was the only ones that you could actually look at the character and say, "Oh, I know who they are."
Right.
But everyone else is like the people of color are hidden behind masks.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because why do they have to be behind masks for them to be prominent characters that you want to use?
Yeah. And that and that's the kind of way I was kind of seeing it. And I'm like, man, why, it's like the movie is great with our voice or our attitude, but then like you said, like you hiding behind the CGI or you hiding behind the mask.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of tough, and I get it. Like there's a lot of space and aliens and all that stuff, and I get that part. I do. And so it's just that those characters seem to be more predominantly made up of us.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, yeah, and see some people say, "Oh, well, they're good actors and actresses. The reason why they want to use them." Yeah, I get that part,
Right.
but do they all have to be behind a mask?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I understand they're great, but I would rather them be great not behind a mask.
Not behind the mask. Yeah. And they obliged us. They obliged us. So we go to the other part of the universe in Obi-Wan Kenobi series, right? You had the third sister in Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Miss Ingram, who's Reva, right?
Yes.
And here's where the elephant in the room comes in, right? Do you feel like you're a part of the Star Wars galaxy? And I say galaxy mean the fandom. Like, are you do you feel like you are? Because this person's face hit the screen and she's getting all kinds of crazy backlash from some of the fans that are from the fandom, and it's like racial epitome, bro. Like all this person
Mm-hmm.
did was went to work and as an actor and showed their craft on a silver screen.
Which
And
one was that?
this was
The
the
series
third
Obi-Wan, the
Obi-Wan.
third sister.
Oh, with that she was like the one that tried to kill Vader at one point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
She
one.
was getting a lot of stuff.
And she
remember.
was taking it to him. She was taking it to
She
him.
was getting a lot of stuff.
Yeah, she
I
was getting a
remember
lot of
reading
feedback, and that is
And
that is the focal point of this
was
conversation.
this guy, what's his name? Obi-Wan. He stuck up for her, like on
Yeah.
in social media, like he
Yeah, social media was like murdering, and it was
Yeah,
like
they was all over, and I don't understand. And like I said, I was very, I try to keep in the social media realm. I try to keep my mouth to certain levels.
Yeah.
But I was a little angry about that and wanted to speak out about some things. And I do remember responding to some things directly to people.
What was the reason for her getting that backlash? What was the cause? I don't remember.
Because you're black.
Oh, it wasn't that she did something, or I don't know. Like,
she played a dominant role. Like, and I'm telling you, if you watch it, like you said, watch it again. She almost took Vader out, and it was a hell of a plan, bro. It was a good plan.
Even in the group that she was in, the other two, and when they were showing up, she put
they were inquisitors. Yeah, they were inquisitors.
Yeah, the inquisitors. Yep. They were pissed because they were like, okay, what do you mean you talk to Vader directly? I talked to Vader. And
Right.
she was just like, what you gonna do about it?
I go to
I did what I-
BrickCons, right? And you get the Star Wars, section there. And bro, it's the minorities is me, there's you, there's Rich Boy J. You see, and I didn't even get the 5 yet. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, not that I'm kicking anybody's back in, but I think that like I think there should be more of a welcoming to other cultures for that theme, man. Like that theme. And here's the thing. The group of dudes that I chill with, like the Red Lug, the Empire Lug, all them dudes, they cool as a fan. But if you don't take the time to get to know them, then it looks like it's isolated, right? It looks
Of course.
like it looks like unwelcoming. It looks that way. But I mean, unless you go over and say, I get along with just about anybody, I just start talking, right? And I found out for myself. I went around and started mixing it up with those guys, and they're a bunch of fun, man. Like they're fun, and I learned so much about Star Wars and Lego Star Wars from Empire Lug, watching Red Lug, and all them dudes. And it's like a fraternity. That's why I went. I was like, yo, I want a part of this party. This is like a fraternity, man. I want a piece of this right here. That's why I was interested. But like, on the outside looking in, it doesn't look as welcoming, and so, how do you even twist that to like, I'm asking you, how do you bridge the gap? Like if someone came to you and said, hey man, like, my minority, be like, hey, look, I'm really into Star Wars Lego and I want to hang with them dudes. How do you bridge that gap?
That's a touchy subject. No, as far as any group is concerned, I feel like yes, there's a little bit of a cliquey sight when you're seeing like a group of people being together, and you wanting to be a part of that group can be really intimidating. And as far as like Lego Star Wars, whether that be Rebel Lug or Empire Lug, I know they all look alike, they all act alike, they're all a bunch of boys running around. I mean, I love it because that's like my youth. So like I get it. It's very attractive to want to be a part of that fraternity. And I mean, I'm gonna be real, like Empire Lug, they're a bunch of cool people. So, yeah, Matt, you have Rich Boy. I mean, like it's a pretty, although Lego in itself is predominantly, at least in appearance, when you go to a convention, white. But so is most of America. But like there are, people of color in these groups. So Empire Lug especially. And if I've seen them help out so many people not in their lug as far as mock space, just talking. So this speaks in the whole Lego group as a whole. Like if you just talk to somebody, no one's gonna shun you away. So but I do understand because now you have women in like pretty coming out and about in all these areas, and in a place that's culturally dominating by men,
right?
It can be a little bit too much for people. And how do we bridge that gap? That's a social experience. That's a social experience on its own. Like, I mean, if you just look at Empire Lug, I guess it'll be easier if you want to look at it in the minority aspect. I mean, if you see someone of color over there, it's a little bit easier. So I mean, luckily for Empire Lug, you have Matt and Rich Boy.
Yes.
So you have Asian, and then you have Black.
Right.
So that's pretty easy right there. But it comes to the group in itself harboring that type of welcoming. So, if not saying that you should go find your token dude of any ethnicity or color, that's not what I'm saying. It's just welcoming the conversation, I think, is the biggest part of it. So Star Wars adds a variety of skin tones in their builds through their characters, through their through the pieces that are available. And we have we have to thank Star Wars for turning yellow into skin tone. If it wasn't for that theme, then it would have happened. And then showcasing that on the builds, having the people within the group. I mean, that's the easiest way of bringing that over, especially if you're highlighting characters like Finn in your mock. You know what I mean? I mean, that's a good play right there. And luckily Lego and Star Wars gives you the tools to be able to do something like that.
Yeah, definitely, man. Well said, man. Well said, man. Because I go to this year, like the cons have been like every weekend, right?
Well, for
and
you,
I've seen you at like 7 of them. So, and you're on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast. I see you at 7. So it's like it's but like you run into the same people, which is good, and that's why you get that fraternity feel because you're there to see the boys, but you can be about the boys, but just be more welcoming, like you said, with your mocks. You're featuring somebody that's minority, even though you're about the Star Wars culture, and it might not be cognate to you, but if somebody like me, I'm like, man, this dude got black minifigures all in his mock. Like, hey man, tell me about your mock. Like, tell me about it. And because now you done spark my interest because you invited me in by giving me that eye candy. So there's different ways. I like how you said it. There's different ways that you can incorporate inclusion into those cons, just like that. So with the up, there's always downs, right? With the big family of Star Wars and everything like that, right? So
before is that there are people who in the fandom, if they don't like it, then they feel that it shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
My thought is, I want everybody to have something in Star Wars they like, because that means that there's more of us that like Star Wars, means there will be more content.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And see, I think that a lot of people fail to realize that the more people that like Star Wars overall, the more we're going to get. They're like, if it's not what I like, then it doesn't need to be there. I'm like, but you're cutting the amount of people that get to love what you say you love.
Yeah.
And in doing that, you're cutting the amount of content that you're going to get, because if there are less people that like it, it's going to end a whole lot sooner.
Oh yeah, because then at that point it becomes like very it's closed minded. It's very, very, very small. If it's a large galaxy, everybody's story should be told, and that's why I'm kind of glad they kind of got away from the Skywalker series. Like Star Wars is great. Star Wars is even better without the Skywalkers. Like, can we move on from them? It's like there's none of them left, but we still talking about their saga. Like, so it's like like can we move on from them? Because like even when they did the Mandalorian series, which was like the first, I'm gonna say, in real life action movie, like not even movie, but it was a series away that was away from the Skywalker series. That's the first time you got to see the galaxy away from the Skywalker saga. Because even Clone Wars, you got Vader in there, so that's Skywalker. Like he's still around. Even Rebels, Darth Vader's still around. That's Skywalker saga, right?
Exactly.
That's still in that era where Mandalorian, not so much.
Yeah, that was the first time we actually got something that the majority of the series was, as they would say, ground level. Yeah. You didn't have.
So I would see the same thing back into the LEGO community, as far as like, if you want to bring it back to, I mean, we could bring it back to the third sister, but I could say a lot about that. But if like just you see it in the culture, like of you see an Empire lug, you'll see it in any lug. Really, color doesn't have to do with anything. It's just we, as in the fans who are of that, make yourselves known to make it easier for all those that can come through, because that's like a big deal a lot for people that are kind of just walking around looking in a big room of white.
Right. Yeah. And that's just it. It's just, I think, when I see that, I think it's a two-way street, and maybe we've been harping on one side of the street, but even so, like, the arena's on that side of the street, and the people that are invited on the left side of the street for for lack of better terms, but but it's just getting those people that's on that side of the street on the outside looking in to come into the culture of Star Wars and Star Wars Lego, right? And I'll say, like, Black people, we do love Star Wars. We do. We do. And it's funny because when I talked about it like with my other group before, but like, you know, I went to go see that movie with my family because my mom was a huge fan of Billy D. Williams. And like I said before, I think every mom loved Billy D, boy. Back in the day, every mom loved Billy D. He was smooth. And so, you know, you get that support from the Black communities, especially in the 70s, 80s, right? Because you know that's the second I guess group of people other than the white families, right? That are going to these movies in America, right? And so you get that star, you know, that star person to draw that crowd in, but you only gave my man less than 20 minutes on the screen. So that's why I said it felt good to be a part of this universe and have more than just 20 minutes. So when I saw Finn, I'm like, yeah, man, I don't care. Look, they could have that dude play the janitor. And if he was on every shot mopping up the floor in every shot, I still would have been cool because you could still see my guy. that's
as long as you can see him, right?
See my guy, you know what I mean? Like, and so I think that, like you said, like, you know, even now, I love the way Disney Plus have opened up the universe, and now they got away from the Skywalker series, and we can actually see the universe without the Skywalkers. Let me see how you see people that look like you see people that look like me, you see, and it's like, man, this is what the future is supposed to be like even like for lack of better terms, and I'm switching galaxies here, but Guardians of the Galaxy. If you go to their little planet of nowhere, it's all kinds of crazy. It's a melting pot. You know, to me, that's what the future looks like. It looks like, you know, a place that would be like New York City, where there's a melting pot of different shades of people just, you know, coming and going about everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I say, or like Fifth Element, like you see different types of people just coming and going everywhere. And so I think that, you know, these little side series of the Star Wars galaxy has done that justice. And so that's
the best part about that is to me, it doesn't feel forced, because that was always my thing. Like, and this is why Disney in itself has a lot of problems, because a lot of the agendas that they're trying to push it's not really coping with a lot of the fandom, and mainly because it's forced. With Star Wars, I feel it's not forced,
right?
As in like the other, you know, as in the other genres of Disney, you know, IP. So, you know, when I see someone of color in Star Wars, I don't see color. I just see the character.
Right.
That's it. And if I don't notice anything else but the character, that just shows where we want to be in a society, right? That's what we want to be as a norm. But when it's like force fed down to you, and it doesn't make any sense, or they're highlighting it because it's like, okay, I get it, but you know, now you're taking away that they are just a regular person, just like everybody else, and you're putting them too much in a pedestal. Now there are times and place for that. For example,
they have to change with the times.
Yeah, true.
The people haven't changed, you know, like
but you know what? Let me tell you, like, a lot of those people that started with this Star Wars movement are probably either in a rocking chair or 6 feet under. So for like a person that a Star Wars enthusiast, a Star Wars enthusiast, in a Lego one at that, you know, to feel standoffish when I walk through the room and I start talking about Star Wars, or I'm admiring your Star Wars build, you know, you should sit down and break bread with me and let's talk together about the Star Wars thing, because we got something in common, right? Like we got
common and different views, though. Like you seeing it from a different angle than they are. Like you would have a different conversation. Like, oh, how about, because you see something different.
Yeah.
You know, from what they see.
Oh yeah, no doubt, man.
And you know that
subject, but how far are you on the builds?
Oh, you fast, man. I see you done.
I got this part built so far.
I see you done, bro. And we building the same thing. I saw the wings. When I see you doing the wings, I said, "This dude ain't playing."
You know, and I'm on one of the wings, so I'm getting there.
Let's go get done. Let's go get done.
All right.
It's gonna
I
get
don't
done.
know.
May not be tonight, but it's gonna get done.
What
Let's
is
go
the
get done.
difference between these red ones and the blue guys? Look, check it out. What is he?
All right.
He is a
Those
shock trooper. The
Coruscant.
shock troopers are from Coruscant. They were mostly the ones who protected the Chancellor.
Then in this episode, they came out wearing the red. He had some troops. They had some red on too, no? In this last episode of Ahsoka, they had some red. I think I don't remember. I thought I saw
you talking about the troop? Okay, so that was just basically how they had wrapped red cloths around their clothing to kind of like it was trying to hold things together.
And the 501 is the blue ones, right?
Yep.
Yeah, the 501st is the blue ones.
Yep.
I just had the other ones. Where's these? And then where's on the box of these? It says Ahsoka.
Are you learning today? Look at you.
No,
yeah, those are Ahsoka's troopers. So if you watch,
those are Ahsoka's troopers.
If you watch the last season of Clone Wars, Ahsoka received her own troopers because she got a promotion, and so she received her own troopers, and they matched her up with her look, and that's why they. You see it? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go, man. I like that though, man. I like that. So when you go watch Clone Wars and you look at the last season of Clone Wars, you'll see it. You can be like,
me and my son, we watched one when Bad Batch came out. We was watching that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like the other, like that's how I learned about the clones too. Like, wait a minute,
Bad Batch. I started with Bad Batch first, and I was backwards too. I didn't mess with clones at all until I saw Bad Batch. I saw Bad Batch. I saw Rebels. I finished Rebels. Bad Batch came out, and I said, you know what? Let me check out clones.
For that, for example, and going back to your other universe with Black Panther. He has to be black.
Yeah,
he's coming out of Africa. That makes sense.
Right.
But like that was a beautifully done character, and that was the intention for him to be of that origin, and it was well played. I mean, I've never seen so many black Lego enthusiasts in the Lego store until that Black Panther bus was on sale.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I'm in line.
I think I kind of feel like responsible for that thing going on sale, bro.
hey, whatever. No, good. Good for you. But I'm gonna be real. Like when I went into the Glendale Lego store to pick up that set, right? I turn around and there's 10, I would say looks like pretty influential black folk. Like, two of them wearing suits, so it looks like they just came out of, some sort of profession at a job. Well dressed, well mannered, well groomed, well articulated. So, and spending not just on the Black Panther set, but they're buying a bunch of other crap too. And I'm like, okay, so you came out of the woodwork like you were a fan, or this got you out to become a fan? Yeah. But I've never seen so many in one spot. So I'm like, where'd y'all come from?
Yeah,
I don't see this out in the conventions. Like, where are you in the conventions? I don't see you. Like, I don't see you on social media. Like, I don't see you anywhere else. And culturally, I kind of get it. We have our own things that we have to deal with. We have our own responsibilities and norms, and that's like that with every other culture. But population wise, obviously there's a lot less black people here, Asian people, more black people here, more Asian people here than there would be in the Midwest, or not Midwest, but like in the very mountain part of the world in the United States. But like even here, I don't see many people of color in the Lego store. I don't see very many of that at all.
No, I don't.
And that's why when that Black Panther set was on sale, I look around, I'm like, I've never seen so many black people in this store in my life.
And see, that's just
but I really wish they would have kept with the original concept for the Mandalorian. Because what happened is they let fandom drive the direction of the series. So
Yeah.
the original concept for the series was this: is that each season was going to focus on a different Mandalorian.
Okay.
The first season was supposed to be just Din Djarin. Second season, we were supposed to get Boba Fett. We did, but it wasn't as focused on Boba as it was supposed to be.
Right.
Third season was supposed to be Bo-Katan, which we got her, but it wasn't as focused on her as it should be. And but what was happening is the fans are getting angry because we're not getting Din, because they say he's the Mandalorian. No, they called him the Mandalorian because nobody knew his name.
Yeah.
Once we got his name, we knew that's what his name was, but he's not the only Mandalorian.
Right.
And that's the thing. And people couldn't get that concept, and they couldn't get it out of their head. They're like, oh, this is Din Djarin's show. Why is it that they're focusing on this or that? Just like season 4 is supposed to be coming in, we should be getting Sabine Wren on the as the Mandalorian that they're focusing on. Are we going to get it? Probably not, because one, a lot of people are still, giving a whole lot of backlash because they're focusing on other characters, and two, I'm sorry, Sabine just has not been acting like a Mandalorian on this show.
Yeah, I kind of want to jump ship real quick and talk about that. That's kind of bugging me. Like, that's really bugging me, man. Like, I'm like, like Shannon Sharp, like, you let me down. Like, like you let me down.
She acting like a sad
hard.
puppy.
Like, you let me down. Because like on Rebels, now correct me if I'm wrong. I might be wrong. In Rebels, Sabine is a Mandalorian, and that's it. She ain't trying to wield no force. There was no training to wield no force. And now all of a sudden, in this series with Ahsoka, she trying to not only that she's a horrible Mandalorian because she can't fight. She's getting thrown around everywhere.
Like, did you see a Mandalorian got skills no matter what? Like,
she used to be dope.
She used to be dope. In Rebels, dope. She's an all-out assassin.
She's a Mandalorian. Like, I was asking Rev, like, we was talking about her one day, and like I said, I didn't know who she was. And he told me, but I'm not. Also, I see she had the helmet and I see the force thing, so I didn't know where she was.
She's a Bo-Katan type of Mandalorian where they take their helmets off and it's no big deal, right? She's part of that house, right?
Yeah.
But here, like, she's trying to wield the force and be a Padawan and stuff like that. And it's like I don't see that, because that's conflict, because those two people, those two factions don't like each other.
Yeah, the Jedi and the Mandalorians were at the only person was the Paz Vizsla, who was that they called the Mandalorian, who was the only Mandalorian that had joined the Jedi Order. He was the only one, and it's because the fact that he actually could wield the Force was unique because of the fact that it's about the balance within you, and they're warring people, and they are not about that type of balance. So it was hard for them, in the aspect of how he could wield the Force, because it's like, okay, how are you able to do this when they talk about how these things are supposed to be this way or the other,
right?
So it was really interesting, his whole backstory too. But back to Sabine, we really don't understand why they even went that route. I don't 100% ever want to challenge Dave Filoni, because these are characters that he helped create. So I'm not really, I'm not that guy.
Right. Yeah.
I just sometimes I just wonder the direction that they take stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm here for the entertainment.
Yeah, definitely entertainment. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just but maybe it goes back to what they were trying to introduce with Ray, saying basically the Force is everywhere, and the Force is for everyone. There's a little bit of Force inside you. It's up to you to learn to train to wield it. And that's that was the concept that they were coming out with, and they were like, no, like, you know, the fandom was like, no, you have to be like special to wield the force. You can't, everybody can't have the
That's what I was
force.
just about to ask. So you could train anyone to do that, or it has to be like the force
I
is
got a
strong
funny
with this
feeling
one.
that that's the concept that they're going to use here with Sabine. Like that's the concept I think they're going to use. You know, basically, you know, it's in everyone. You just have to have the right mindset to wield it.
The force
Yeah.
is strong with this one.
Yeah, and I think and I'm really thinking that at the end of the series is when we're going to see her actually do something force related.
Yeah.
I'm thinking in this next episode, the last episode of this series, we're going to see her do something force related, which is it's going to be minor, but it's going to be force related that we can see. Okay,
I didn't know who she was. I told Rep the other day, I was like, yo, I don't like that girl. Da, da, da. I thought she was like a major character somewhere
just
else.
give it a minute, bro. Just give it. Watch Rebels. You change your mind about the character.
Because I didn't know the story of the dude she went to say. I didn't, like I said, I don't know. I didn't know that. So I'm like, yo, why would she risk it? She's saving this one person, blah, blah, blah. Then Rev broke it down. Oh, in the show and this and
because
that.
she in love.
Like,
yeah, she was tight with
right.
homeboy. Yeah, she was
So
tight.
it made sense, you know.
She in love. Let's not. We know she in love.
Right.
You know, because the thing about it is, if you sit there and look at her, she act like a lost puppy. That's what I'm like. That's the thing I don't like, is because, like I said, she's a Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And not to say that Mandalorians ain't supposed to fall in love, because how they having children and all that type stuff, but she's acting like a lost puppy. And that's the thing that's the only thing I didn't like. So I still think she's a great character. I just think that we need to get past this lost puppydom and get her to the point
I
of.
don't like that girl. Why she got to do that? She's bringing
he was like, I don't understand why she was like, you gotta understand,
you know, and that's just it. It's like, to Lego, you know, it was just too much for that family, for that culture. And when the price dropped, then they supported it. And I did something with my kids, right? I did something, you know, I'm director at the Boys and Girls Club. I did something. I called the manager. They had a community build and everything like that. And I called the head and I said, look, I got 20 kids. You got enough for us? And she said, yeah. So I take them down there, bro. And we're waiting outside. And she says, and I'm recording this thing, right? And she says, hey, who has been to the Lego store before? Bro, my hand was the only one up. 20 kids, my hand was the only one up. They ain't never been to a Lego store before. And they live, I'm gonna tell you, they live probably 3 miles away from the mall where the Lego store is. And ain't none of them been in there once. I'm sure they've been to the mall, but they haven't been in the Lego store. Not once, bro. And that set me back, man. That was like a punch in the stomach, man. Because to me, I walk through the Lego store. It's a playground for me, man. There's so many hopes, so many dreams, so much imagination, you know, and it gets the brain juices flowing every time I walk in. And I know that they have like their imaginations through the roof, right? And so for them not to feel that way, it's like almost them being robbed from an experience, man.
Yeah.
So it just took me back.
It also shows the priorities of the culture, you know. So I look at my own family now. To full disclosure, I never really said it here, but you know, I'm half black, half Filipino. I don't really claim to be like black because I don't look like it, so I'll never openly say it unless I need to. But I look at my own family, right? And my family on my dad's side, they've been through it. You know, they're from Alabama, they're from North Carolina, so they went through it. My dad definitely went through it when he was younger. But you know, so being around that, you know, so with that side of the family, you know, we had people that made it in life, that doing well, and we got people that didn't, you know, for many other reasons. But the priority has never been, at least on my family side, I'm only speaking for mine, and those that have been around the neighborhood, not really splurging on toys.
Okay.
You know, it's always been basketball, football, and you know, if you do play with toys, it's hand-me-downs or whatever's on the sale rack. Lego is out of reach as far as I think obvious by price, but it's just I think it's an accepted fact that one is going to be a mess. I don't want to clean that up. And then two, it's like it's out of reach as far as monetary value. And I'm saying monetary value, not necessarily meaning that it's just expensive, meaning the culture, like the black culture, maybe other cultures as well, the Latino culture, you can say the same thing in many ways, because now a lot of it here in LA especially, they're very intermixed. They don't see the value in spending that much money on a toy.
They don't.
You know what I mean? We have other problems to deal with. That's it comes from a very privileged place to be able to buy something like that.
Yeah.
So, I think that could be a huge part on why we don't see a lot of people of color, of any color, in these conventions. Because I think like you got to see where a lot of these minorities live at. I mean, I'm gonna say Native Americans.
Yeah.
Have you seen any Native Americans out here in the Lego world,
bro? And
no, you know why? A lot of them are broke.
In Utah, and I'm like, I seen them out in Utah, but they weren't in that convention. They weren't.
That we like Lego is very much a privileged toy to be buying, and want to continue to buy and make it a hobby.
Right.
So Lego knows that they're expensive and they can only do so much. But it really comes down to the only thing I think we can do, aside from giving it away, is just showing
business when you do that.
Yeah. I do a lot of it. You do a lot of it, but you can only do so much, right? Like to really appreciate. I guess the better phrase would, the only thing we can do for the people of our culture to better appreciate why we love this so much is to continue doing what we do and put it out there. Create these beautiful things. Go on Lego Masters, like pull people out, give a homie a toy, like be like, hey dude, put the gun down and build a Lego set, dude.
You gonna feel much better. You'll feel much better.
You'll feel much better. I mean, I'm being very bad with what I'm doing, but you know what I mean. Like, I think a lot of it has to do with just introductory, aspects of the Lego. Like I'll use my motorcycle club as a perfect example, right? A lot of us make good money. I mean, it takes a lot of money to be in a motorcycle club. Like you need the upkeep of Harley Davidson, which is not cheap on its own. Your dues, your events, and just riding around the United States. So you need to make money to be in a motorcycle club nowadays. Not like back in the 60s and 70s where you could sling dope. No, you can't do that no more. Everyone's filming everything. You can't do stuff like that. There's cops everywhere. This guy right here included. So like you got to have a real job. You got to take care of your family. You got to do what you got to do. Now, these guys, they don't play with Lego. But then when you give them a Lego set, they become a kid again. But they would have never touched that Lego set if I didn't give it to them to begin with. Same thing with all these veterans that are out there, like suffering from PTSD, suffering from other problems, whatever they're dealing with.
Right.
The military don't give you Lego. So they're never around. But why would it be? I mean, it doesn't make sense for it to be. The only time you will see a Lego set is if your kids playing with it, but they're not going to see, they're not going to be introduced to it unless another person's giving it to you. So that's when it really becomes key. Like, why did you like Lego? Like I got pulled into Lego because I was a fan and I used my son as an excuse to get into it. And then I fell in love with it. Usually it's that aspect, right? Your kids get you into it usually. But for a lot of it has to be, you're introduced to it by a friend, or you see it online or on television.
Right.
Once it becomes acceptable that you're noticing that's a social norm, then you'll just tell everybody. Like, I know a lot of people that are in the social media world that don't share, or I guess in general, right? A lot of Lego fans, how many of you do not share your Lego fandom with your coworkers or your actual friends that are not Lego friends? I would bet that a lot of people don't share their fandoms with the homies, like your own friends. Like I have a personal page. I have a Lego page. Very rarely do I post a Lego thing on my personal page.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean? And I don't know if it's because I'm afraid to, or like they're just not to accept it. But it's like, but why? Like, so like, but it takes me to share a Lego post for the friends in my other circles to be like, one of two things: he's a nerd, or oh, that's cool. Let me buy a Lego set. And then what happens later down the line, it'll be like I'll get a DM or a text message. Hey, I just bought this for myself. I'm like, oh, that's cool. They start getting into it because it becomes a norm. And that's, culture aside, that's really what it takes is seeing someone that you respect, that you look up to, or you're good with, building something with Lego. And that goes so much further than, just walking down and looking at the Lego store and then walking by, and I feel bad for these kids that don't get that opportunity to be able to experience the Lego brick as we do, and that's a big deal because we, that's beyond what we can repair, because that's going to take another couple generations to un-F itself. So, but once it does, I mean, we can continue the good fight, and just give what we can, show what we can. And then Sam does a good job with his, his STEM classes. Build what you can with what you got. And that's essentially what mock building is, right? Like great mockers can build anything with what they have.
Yeah.
So I ain't one of those people, but I'll be on Bricklink all day.
Me too.
Ordering what I need to make it look good. But for the most part, to be told as a child that you can build anything is a very vague and very open concept, right? You can build everything, but can you? But to be given the tools and I guess what's the better word? The confidence, I guess, would be like what Sam does. The confidence in pushing you to build anything based on what you have is completely different. Like you need that. Like if I can give you a set and be like, here, go build and walk away. Usually that's what happens when I give away Lego. I'm not going to be there to be like, I need you to build this. Oh, but I can't build it. I'm not going to be there because I'm giving you the Lego. But it takes your pops, your brother, your homie to be like, hey, this is all we have. Let's just build an elephant. But we can't. Let's just try. And then let's see what it does. So, people that can do that and can push people to their limits based on what they have, make gold out of dust. That's really all we can do, dude.
Yeah, man. We get you out of here on that, man. I appreciate you coming in, man, and laying down some science, man. It's a long, hard road, and I think the destiny was already set before you and I got here, and it will be that way before we're long gone. But like you said, I think we can do our part to mend the community and just bring some people in that look like us while we're here.
I think that's the key, is bringing more people or influencing more people within our cultures to come in, and the Lego community as a whole right now, as of today, they're the most welcomest people ever. They don't see color. They don't see anything else. They just see that you love the Lego brick and they're down. So anyone out there, if you feel like there is a barrier, there isn't, just come say hi. And that's all it really takes.
That's it, man. That's it.
I felt like I was talking on my ass the whole time.